Good day. Welcome to Portsmouth This Week. This is the November 16th, 2012 edition of our program. This is the voice of the Portsmouth Town Hall. I'm Jeff Richard, and I'll be hosting today. Today's discussion is going to be really interesting and lively when I hope we have our fire department with us today. And they have with them a brand new piece of gear, which we in Portsmouth are now privileged to own several of. And we're going to talk about those, and they're called defibrillators. With me to talk about those things are Lieutenant Steve Lynch, welcome Steve, and firefighter Andrew Jones, who goes by Jonesy.
How are you?
Anyway, we're going to talk about something that is brand new to you folks at the department. Tell us a little bit about why defibrillators are important to our EMT world.
Okay. As many people know, defibrillators now have been marketed into every aspect of the community. We have them in all our major buildings, town halls.
I was going to say, my church parish hall just got one, and it's up on the wall.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And so what's happening now is the goal through the American Heart Association is early defibrillation, early ALS care. And the defibrillator, having a defibrillator allows you to monitor the patient, and then if there's a rhythm that's shockable that you could convert, it'll automatically tell you to do that, especially in the types that are in the churches and town halls. Mm-hmm. And it may allow you to administer a shock to that patient and possibly convert their cardiac rhythm back to a perfusion rhythm.
And casually looking at it, I went to YouTube, and how difficult is it to use some of these ALS systems, something less sophisticated than what you're going to show us? But
well, there's the automated defibrillators, which is the ones that you see in your church, and then there are these. These obviously require a lot more training because they can do a lot more. Whereas the actual AEDs that you find in schools and churches, it has a voice-operated system that tells you step by step what to do. They're extremely easy. All you have to push is between 1 and 2 buttons. They're extremely easy to use, and they guide you through the entire process. This requires a little bit more training, though.
Yeah, understood. I recall that the actual expense of the smaller units was considerable. I mean, I thought about having one for myself. That's $1,700 worth of equipment here. So.
Absolutely.
So, but these particular defibrillators, are you going to have them on all of your rescue vehicles, including the fire trucks and the ladder truck?
So right now, we bought 2 of these. These are the X Series Zoll. They're the newest and greatest, and they're going to be on our 2 frontline rescues. And then our older versions that were on the rescues have now been rotated out to the fire engines.
Okay. Zoll is the manufacturer?
Zoll is the manufacturer of all of the products
So
we
is
carry.
this the most modern piece of equipment that any fire department in the country could possibly have in terms of defibrillators?
Absolutely state-of-the-art, yes. Yeah. There's a back order on these right now.
Okay. And who thought about this? I mean, do you get, every once in a while you review your equipment on your rescue vehicles?
Yes.
And the defibrillator was a standard one for you, and somebody said, hey, there's a new one out there, better?
Yes. Now Chief Cranston, he was then the training and EMS officer, and he kind of got the ball rolling on this and saw the need for it, and we obviously 100% backed him on that.
Yep.
There's been a lot of literature about it that was very promising for this device. Okay.
Has anybody else in the country got a better device for defibrillation in a rescue wagon than us?
There are several different manufacturers, but I would say, no, this is it. This is the state of the art.
Sometime during our program here, I'm going to have Jonesy maybe show us a little bit about how this thing is going to be put to use. But to go back a bit, we have 3 rescue wagons, we have 3 pumpers, and we have 1 ladder.
Right.
Right, but you don't have one on the boat. So we have a
No, we carry everything with us, and we make the boat into a pseudo ambulance when needed.
There you go. Okay. The price of these things, and how did we fund them? I guess when the chief said, okay, good idea, we should have these. You have a budget, you have lines, you have to stick to that budget. Where in the budget did this come from?
Well, one of the first things that should be, and it is very much a thank you to the people of Portsmouth, we've had some large donations made to the department for the ambulances for this type of equipment, and then also grant money that the chief was able to acquire to advance this.
Super. Roughly what do they cost?
Well, originally, the 2 units that we bought, combined price was $55,000. But because we went through a group purchase with several other towns, we were able to get them for $33,000 for the 2.
For two.
For the-
So they're $15,000 a whack,
Yes.
basically.
Yes.
Okay. Did you get a rebate on the older ones? Can you hand them back in and you know?
Absolutely. So this is kind of the third generation monitor that
Okay.
we're using through Zoll right now of this type. And what we did was we took the first generation to Zoll, and they refunded some money and credited us some money.
Okay.
The second generation is now on the engines, and this is the
Life expectancy for something like this would be how long?
5 to 10 years.
Okay.
Problem is that, like anything else, technology is just
Oh, absolutely.
moving along.
Yeah, the cell phones are unbelievable. You know, like- but I guess the basic question everybody would like to have answered is, okay, why do we need these things? In other words, how busy are these machines going to be? So you have, I'm sure, statistics to talk about how many times you roll for emergencies like this. And so how often would you expect to use something like this?
Well, we do about 3,500 calls a year for the entire fire department, and about 2,200 EMS calls. This monitor comes off the truck with us, I would say 99% of the time. The demographic of Portsmouth is an older community. And
I know, I'm one of those.
so most of the calls that we go on, we have a lot of cardiac-related calls. So we use this monitor several times a day for that purpose at that advanced level.
And it's so portable that it's got its own energy source, so you just pick it up and in you go.
Yes.
Okay. And the mechanics then of okay, so I suppose a typical example, you've come into a home and there's somebody on the floor, and you do your EMT things, you do your paramedics. You're not all paramedics, right? You're
Correct.
Some
We're
of your
all-
basic your EMTs.
All advanced life support EMTs, but then there are different higher levels.
Okay.
Andrew's one of the higher levels.
So what happens then? You get a call, you get a 911 call, and you rush and you get to the house and you're in. Somebody's on the floor, and what's the first thing you're going to do?
Start talking to them. Start to get a history and
Nothing. Out, right? Out cold.
Well, we would assess them.
assess
yeah.
them.
So assessment is the first part of it. So you would go through assessing the patient. How do they look? Are they breathing? Are they conscious? Do they have a pulse? You know, once you get through that assessment portion, then we get into the life-threatening part of it. So, you know, which part, you know, so their airway, is it open, clear, secure? You know, breathing, are they breathing at all?
Right.
Do they have any circulation, which would be a pulse? If they don't have any of those things, we would start by doing CPR, and we would start treatment.
Okay.
We would start securing their airway, and then, you know, while breathing for them, and then we would go to this, and this would be the next part of that, which would be defibrillation.
Yeah. So the standard CPR now, as I understand it, is just chest compressions. You're not using mouth to mouth as a matter of routine. So if
That's
there's
what they're
arrhythmia,
recommending.
if the heart is not obviously functioning the way it should be, in other words, it's going too fast, or it's going too slow, or it's out of whack, or not working at all.
Right.
With the new data, they have found that CPR is vastly important, and the compressions part of it is extremely important. And making sure that we're doing those good compressions, like you said, the hands-only part of it. So making sure that they get compressions early and often. So early in doing that, 100 compressions a minute is what we
And then
really want.
while one of you is doing that, someone else is getting this ready for possible use.
Absolutely, and that's kind of the reason why you see us sometimes rolling down the road with a fire engine behind us in the ambulance. This allows us to do all those things we just talked about at once. So
As a
Mm-hmm.
everything
group.
happens quickly.
Because now instead of having 2 guys, we have 5 guys available to get all the things done we need
So
done.
to get a sense of what the beating in the heart is all about, you have to attach this equipment,
Yes.
and at that point, it's going to tell you, okay, exactly what the heart is doing or isn't doing.
Right.
And if you need to bring it back into normal rhythm,
Yes.
you can press the button, and that machine automatically will give the appropriate.
No.
No.
That's where the skill line comes in
Okay, there you
in the
go.
experience.
Talk to me about that.
So it's mostly a care system that it's no one thing that works. So as Jonesy can show you.
Well, why don't you go? Yeah, if you'd like to, give us a short demo.
on this.
So we're going to open it all the way up
There
first.
you go. And we have 12 lead capability on this side, and that's one of the first things we're going to do, and that's going to help us.
Yeah, the 12 lead means the EKG attachment points.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's 4 leads, and then there's 12 leads. So the 4 lead is the basic version that we use, which is these right here. Forgive us, we got these all coiled up for
Yeah.
storage here. But these would attach on the person.
Okay.
So
And you know
we would
the
have-
secret places.
Yep, the secret places.
Okay.
They're actually very easy. The 4-lead, the basic version.
I'll steal one of
These
those
would
from
go on top, right here, and then these go on the bottom. We got a cool little mnemonic: black over red, which is smoke over fire, and then white over green, which is snow over grass.
Okay.
So we would put those here, and these are called limb leads. So the top two would go on his arms,
So it's just peeled and stick.
peel and
Peel and
stick.
stick. And that's
It's
what I was
not the
going
old
to show you here.
defibrillator thing in the hospital where you got two paddles and you put gel on them and you get whacked and
Right.
somebody jumps on it.
Well, it is still the same thing, though. The gel is just, what they do now is on the electrodes, these are extremely sticky, as anyone knows that's
Okay,
ever
yeah,
had them.
yeah.
They're
Had
terrible
a
to
few
come off.
EKGs in my day.
In the middle here is a spongy material, and that same gel that they would normally put on
Yeah.
those electrodes goes on here. And that's actually how we monitor. That center is where the electrical activity is monitored.
Okay,
Yep.
great. So you're making a decision right away whether to use the 4 attachment or a 12 attachment.
Yes.
And
Yes.
initially, you want to get moving as fast as you possibly can, so sticking 4 of those things on there gets you an immediate reading,
Yes.
right?
That will show us the rhythm. So
How much time from the time you have a heart experience till you're there can you get away with before things bad happen?
Well, sometimes we arrive and things bad are already happening.
Already happening,
So
okay.
the idea, and a lot of people have heard of the golden hour, and they've actually used that for a lot of other things now, including strokes. So that onset of chest pain, within an hour of that onset of chest pain is that critical time where heart muscles
You've got
die.
to have help.
Absolutely.
So the sooner you notice your symptoms, the better it is to call us, because if you wait, then we lose that window to get you to the hospital where
there
they
you
can
go.
do some
Yep.
life-saving surgery or a life-saving procedure.
The American Heart Association and the American Stroke Association both have guidelines on their websites as to how to deal with that. But what happens here is once we find that the person is in an arrhythmia, well, after attaching the 12 lead and the 4, and they're used in combination, they give us a view of the heart.
Okay.
Now we can kind of determine what's going on.
Yeah, you use the word arrhythmia. That just to the layman, that means
Oh,
that what's
yes.
going on, how many beats per minute, and
Yes. And how the
It's out of sync.
how the
Yeah, there you go.
electrical
It's
activity
not what
in your heart
It's
is.
not what it's supposed
Right.
to be. Yeah, because normally we're beating about 72 beats per minute, and
Yes.
if it goes to 160, that's bad. If
Yes.
it goes to 0, that's worse.
also bad.
And then even in, as someone's having a heart attack, the tissue in their heart starts to die. And the electrical activity that's going through the heart starts to change how it reacts within the heart.
Okay.
And that's really what we're
And
looking
this
for here.
machine is going to pick up that
And-
nuance.
Yes.
Okay, now you've picked up something that's out of whack. The arrhythmia is an issue, and can this machine settle that heart rate?
It has the ability to, absolutely, in combination with drugs that we
Okay,
give.
but you have to make a decision.
Yes.
as on scene to how much to administer and how many times.
Absolutely. So using our protocols, the state protocols, and the meds that we have on the truck, we administer meds in combination with administering an electrical shock. So these leads are only for monitoring.
Right.
And then Andrew can show you here.
These are the defibrillation pads. So like the paddles you were
Yep.
talking about, we have now replaced them with pads.
Yes.
So these would come off, and you can actually see the
And this is a lot safer than the old.
metal
no-
piece there.
And
with
that's the same with the new AEDs that you find on the
Yes.
walls every
Yes.
place.
These
Okay.
pads look exactly
Yep.
the same.
Yep.
These are actually kind of nice because they actually also give you a place marker
Okay.
for doing CPR.
And this monitor,
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't notice that.
it's very nice.
Yeah.
And on this monitor in particular, that center piece actually has a measuring device in it that helps us gauge whether or not our CPR is being effective.
Oh.
Yes.
How do they gauge effectiveness? If
Depth of the compression,
Depth.
so it actually
Okay.
it monitors the movement of the
because every
center.
time you compress, you're actually forcing blood in and out of the heart,
Yes,
and you're trying to get it
to the brain
particularly to the brain.
and to the heart muscle. too.
Sorry?
Okay, yeah. Okay, so if at the point in time where you have stabilized somebody in their home, you're going to carry on to the hospital,
Yes.
okay? How does this equipment go? Can you communicate with the hospital using this gear, or you're using something else in the truck?
Nope. Well, it's a combination again. Everything's a system.
Yep.
So this monitor, unlike previous monitors, actually monitors for Wi-Fi. So we can transmit through the Wi-Fi on the truck.
For those of us who are maybe a little computer illiterate, Wi-Fi is the way you connect with the internet without a wire. Okay. Wireless internet.
It just comes naturally to us. So.
Okay, understood.
So this monitor allows us to send what we call telemetry, and it's just the monitoring that we're doing of the heart. So that strip that we would generate, we're able to generate an electronic file and then send that.
So the doctors can take a look at it, and it can prepare their cath lab team, which is this procedure that they perform, you know, to increase the size of the artery, so that way they can get blood flow back to the heart.
And before you had this machine, you couldn't communicate quite like that, could you?
Right. Mostly it goes by phone, and we just tell them. But the nice thing about this now is we can predetermine who gets the information. So the actual doctor in the cardiac cath lab on their little BlackBerry phone can get an email from the Portsmouth Fire Department, open it, and say, "Ooh, this is something that we need to act on now."
Okay.
And the goal is to have the person, from the time they pass through the doors of the ER to the cardiac cath lab table, in about 14 minutes.
14 minutes.
From the time they walk through the door. So again, we go back to that golden hour. Our time on scene added to the time to the table, it all just starts to compress that hour.
Have you, I should ask this, have you had a chance to use this particular gear yet on
Oh yes,
one of us?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay.
It's a great piece of equipment, and unfortunately it seems every time we buy one of these things we get to use it a little too much initially.
Understood.
But the greatest part about it that we use all the time is that 12-lead monitoring, and whether or not we've actually delivered a shock, because we can actually shock people that are conscious.
Sure, to get their heart rhythms stable or normal.
Right.
Well, like you were saying, where it can be their heart rate's too low or it's too fast, we have the ability to do a small shock where we can, like you're saying, in conjunction with drugs and this monitor, to be able to, excuse us,
plus the blood pressure cup.
It's it automatically inflates every 5 minutes.
There you go.
But that gives us the ability to, you know, shock them if they need it, and then get their heart rate higher or lower.
And we can actually control their heart rate. If on this monitor,
you can control heart rate
absolutely.
with this gear?
Yes.
Like a pacemaker that you have put in, we can do that externally. So you'd have an internal pacemaker placed if somebody's pacemaker was not working, or if, you know, their heart was failing and they needed an external pacer, we can do that with this machine.
Yeah, because you've found out if somebody has a pacemaker because it was obvious?
It can be obvious.
Pacemakers are buried in you. I didn't.
Some are, and also defibrillators. Sometimes the defibrillators are actually, you'll see a scar. And a lot of times, the patients that do have a pacemaker or a defibrillator implanted are not unfamiliar to us. We often have already treated them and maybe even brought them to the hospital.
Is it something that if somebody should have a defibrillator implanted or a pacemaker, that they should, as a matter of routine, inform the department so it's a matter of record?
What they should do, and actually we recommend to everyone, especially someone that uses our services regularly, is to have a list done up and put on their refrigerator, and that would have their medical information.
Very good idea.
Their history, anything that we need to know that maybe they've had complications where we don't want to complicate them.
Has the department ever filled out or created a form that would be the preferred form and then got it distributed and said, hey,
there have been, yes.
Here, put that on the, you know, we'll look for that right away.
Well, we recommend that people do it through their doctors because it tends to stay updated. So when they go to the doctor's office, they can, a lot of times they can ask for a printout of their history, and they could actually use that as their form if they needed to.
Josie, how did you get trained on this machine yourself?
Well, through my paramedic class, I that's how we started to learn on defibrillators. I didn't train on this model. We trained on an older model. But then we did a lot of in-house certifications. There was actually a guy from Zoll who came down and was kind enough to do a class with us and did all the ins and outs of this particular monitor, how it works, all the abilities that it has, and we got to train with it that way. And then experience is the ultimate teacher as well.
Sure. You've got, what, about 35 members of the department?
Close to that, yes.
Close to that? Okay. Is everybody now certified on this machine?
Yes. We don't do anything that we don't have everybody on board.
Okay, that's impressive. So, but the chief doesn't get called onto the road anymore, does he?
Sure he does.
Isn't he at home?
Sometimes. Sometimes when we're busy.
No, of course he does. So 35 folks. That's an impressive number. And did Middletown and Newport and Bristol, have they come on board for these things?
I don't know that they did. I actually don't know the exact towns that got on board with the purchase, but it was several towns. That's how they ended up with the buying power to bring the price down, was they regionalized with several departments to bring the price down on it. And we've used that for several other things, pieces of equipment to do the same.
Once you've gotten someone to the emergency room and you want to get on a cath table, you said, you've used your equipment. It's all over somebody.
Yes, yes.
When do you get your equipment back, and when can you go home? You know, how does that work?
Sometimes it takes a little while, depending if. Sometimes we'll actually be involved in the treatment of the patient at the hospital. We assist the emergency room crew. Well, the exciting part was showing up at the house, that ride with only 2 people. But it's great to work under the doctors at the hospitals and understand their mode of treatment. So they'll include us in that, and sometimes we'll continue to use our equipment as they transition over to their equipment. And it can take upwards of a half hour to an hour sometimes before we clear the hospital.
Yep. It struck me that you said you only had 2 of these pieces, but we have 3 rescue wagons, don't we?
Yes.
So you've got the older version in the one. So the on-call units always carry the Zoll, the newest Zoll?
The third unit now is a reserve piece. It's used only as a reserve piece.
Okay. So when you're shifting,
like right now,
during
actually,
the day,
they just transitioned over to the reserve piece before we were leaving.
Okay, because we're...
No, they had something.
No.
The
truck needed some maintenance.
Okay, understood. Well, this is kind of exciting to see this, but roughly, you know, it had to be some estimate of how many times it would actually be used in comparison to the actual cost and then the benefits derived.
Yes.
So that cost-benefit ratio and analysis has all been done. And as far as you guys are concerned, who are front line on it, you know, to make you feel a little better that you've got a better chance of helping somebody when you get in the...
Especially when you're giving drugs to someone that can stop their heart. So you're physically stopping their heart in the back of the truck. To have all the information that you could possibly have is a huge resource.
Yeah.
And a huge benefit to the town and the people.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, so we should be putting a line item in our budget that says that maybe we should buy a couple more of these things, but
I like this one. Yeah. I'm happy, thank you.
Did you give them names by any chance? No? Sometimes we do that. There was a question about when somebody's you're marking people up. As you treat them, you discover what's wrong. You mark them up, and now they're loaded with stickers. Is that how it works? That when they get to the hospital, stickers say what?
So. We mostly our transition of care is a verbal and written report, and then they kind of know what we've seen, and because I'm not sure if this is the question you're asking, but this the electrodes on the patient also indicate where we've looked. So they may need to look in other places. They can actually flip the leads and look the other way, and kind of get a different view.
Ah, I didn't understand that. Okay. How about this, sort of in the preventive world? We've got about 4 minutes left. If somebody's experiencing chest pain, exactly what should they do?
Call 911.
And what is chest pain? I mean,
it's not. Well, one of the misconceptions is that it's always pain. Chest pain isn't always chest pain. Okay. Sometimes it's just a slight discomfort in the chest, in the back. It could be a tingling in the jaw or a discomfort in the jaw, the arm. It might be a sudden onset of shortness of breath that the person's never had before. We definitely recommend calling 911 and having them checked. And we've had several cases where people have had a sudden onset. They drive to the fire station and say, hey, can you just check me out? I don't think something's going on. And we put them on a monitor. And like, well, you should have called us from home. You should have stayed at home and called us to your house.
Yeah, okay.
But like I said, the American Heart Association and American Stroke Association both have guidelines on their websites that people should check out, and definitely recommend
And
that.
some people do experience those symptoms differently. Diabetics notably feel things a little bit differently. That to them it might show up as shortness of breath even. or just even weakness. So like you were saying, if you don't feel good and just something doesn't feel quite right, give us a call. We'll be more than happy to check you out and give it a look and see if there is anything wrong. Better safe than sorry.
Gotcha. That calling your primary care physician is probably also a...
They're going to tell you to call us.
Yeah, good idea. Oh, yeah.
It is,
right.
absolutely. You should definitely notify them.
In that situation, when somebody calls the doctor's office and they say, well, you should be dialing 911 and let those guys deal with it.
Absolutely. And one of the misconceptions, we just did breast cancer awareness month. The biggest killer of women is still cardiovascular disease.
So let's try doing that.
More people die of heart attacks and cardiac complications than they do of other things. So it's important to have that understanding and know those guidelines.
Good. Can you use this thing on every patient, children, older people? Doesn't matter?
Yes, we can actually use it from going from newborns all the way to as old as people get.
Well,
yes.
So it's a very wide range of abilities. We can use it on any patient. Obviously, we would use a different set of pads if it was for a pediatric patient. We wouldn't want to use the big ones. They would be larger than the poor little one, but we can use it if that unfortunate situation were to happen.
And the unit allows us to adjust, which was not a capability of our old monitors. This is something new for this one.
Do we do any external training with regard to defibrillators at, for instance, our senior center, or is there a device on the wall, defibrillator on the wall at the senior center?
Well, anywhere that offers a defibrillator or an AED in their facility, their staff should definitely be trained by a professional before, so it shouldn't just be assumed that they could pull it off the wall and use it. They probably could very effectively. But we definitely recommend that they be trained in contacting
Does the department have a routine training program whereby periodically you invite people to come to get some training?
Several of our members are CPR and AED instructors.
Okay.
So just by calling the training office, and Captain O'Brien would be able to coordinate that for you.
It's something you do as a matter of routine?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I know that the senior center would be an absolutely logical place to have something on the wall, and I decided that I would, in preparation for a discussion with you guys, do the YouTube thing on, and it was, it was very effective.
Yes.
I mean, I now have great confidence that if something happened, I could go and get that thing out of there. Well, we're just about out of time, gentlemen. I want to thank you very, very much for being here for Portsmouth this week, and this is the kind of thing that we like. Very much like the people who watch this show to understand what we have in Portsmouth, and this is exciting. Once again, thank you. And thank you all for watching. This has been Portsmouth This Week. Good day.
Hi, I'm Doug Smith here. Just a quick update on what we're doing for the 375th next year. Members of the 375th Steering Committee will be at Clements Market on Sunday the 25th of November and Sunday the 2nd of December from 10 to 12 on both days. We'll be outside in the foyer there on a desk to answer questions you might have about the events that we're planning for next year and to sign up volunteers. Also, stop by and check out the new 375th t-shirts. Thanks very much.
Portsmouth, Rhode Island is having a birthday, and you can join in. Go to www.portsmouthri375.com for more information.